its other remedies under the contracts deduct from the contract price as liquidated damages. These are standard contracts. You go to contractors, it's a standard contract. Why didn't we invoke clause 27.1? That's a question. That's what we want to know without fair controlling officer. We don't want excuses. I think that shouldn't be the way we should be proceeding in this meeting. So please give us what is the issue at hand. Honorable Dak.
Thank you, Chair. Controlling officer, any contract, any government contract, there are rules and guidelines as provided for in the conditions of the contract. Interest claims. Are you aware that there is an appropriate time at which you can make such claims? You don't, from as far as I'm concerned, I haven't seen this contract. Interest claims are claimed as prescribed in the contract. I've never heard about interest claims being claimed after the contract, the outstanding payments have been honored. These interests accumulate from various claims or interim payment certificates that are generated by the supplier. And I presume that each and every interim payment certificate should have an element of interest which are being accumulated. Can you tell us, controlling officer, who was behind this idea of claiming interest claims after the full payment was honored? Chair, I submit.
Thank you, Honorable. Honorable Mumba, thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Indeed, Chairperson, it's so disheartening to hear what is being talked about today. The issue of dredgers, just from even their payment terms, they were not followed. They were not followed. You paid an advance more than what was prescribed in the contract. Further, when the bills of lading were sent to you, without even verification, you paid the 50%. Who doesn't know? Now, your contract even goes on to be more strange. When did the equipment become represented by IPCs? The equipment you bought is as good as going to Toyota and ordering vehicles. That's the equipment you bought. How can equipment attract damages, interest? This is a very strange contract. It's a new one. And in fact, we should write to ZPP as a committee to get why Ministry of Communication got such a special contract where equipment has started attracting. Do you know how much money government is owing local suppliers? And if all those were to add interest, these are suppliers who are fully supplied government. Now you, a company, 1 year later, after what I've given you as a background of this transaction, they come back after you pay them 1 year later, and mind you, this question was on the floor of the House in the last session of Parliament. So I'm very familiar with it. 1 year later, documents had even expired for that company. All the two documents, the advance payment bond, the performance bond, all those had expired. Then you have come back to say, now you have to pay interest. Mr. Chairperson, I'm requesting that this matter of interest is taken up very seriously administratively, and we pursue this company to pay back the people of Zambia. This is broad light theft. Which contract? Since when? If right now government is struggling to pay IPCs and interest standalone time on all these road contracts, how did you manage to slip in an issue of interest in your contract for equipment? Unless you're telling me dredgers have now become roads or works. Because boats are bought by government. You have bought boats before for maritime. We have never seen interest So this contract for dredgers, Chairperson, I'm requesting through you that we should categorically set it as an example. This is a theft. How can it be possible that you even present to us that you're owing $318 million? How? This will have to pursue, and there should be action from the executive. We can't be losing this kind of money. Contracts are very clear from ZPPA. They are always manipulated in the ministries. That's why we're having these problems. So, Honorable Chairperson, I thought I should just add my voice to this disappointment.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Very, very valid controlling officer. Notwithstanding what the two honorables have said, if you look at your interest, first I would want to know who calculated the interest from the $1 million to come to the 700. Then you make a payment on June 30th, 2021. I think, controlling officer, you know what we're going through from June to August. And this payment is made prior, and how you actually managed to find the $384,000 from the treasury, which was so much struggling to pay interest. Like Honorable Mumba is saying, you are leaving the local suppliers, the local contractors of roads, who are struggling even to just get 100,000 kwacha, but we go and manage to pay interest, very questionable interest of 384. Please, controlling officer, answer those questions from the honorables and coupled with what my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll ask Director Maritime to answer. Just for a recap, if you have to be reminded, there's the issue raised by Honorable Daka on interest claims after honoring the full payment. From Honorable the payment terms not being followed, but also the history that he has given to the issue and how equipment is attracting interest. Then the chair has also asked who did the calculation for the interest.
Before the director comes in, as well as there's clause 27.1 in your contract for liquidated damages. Why didn't you invoke it since it's in your contract?
Thank you, Chair. Through my controlling officer, I wish to state that at the point when I actually took over the office of Director Maritime, these contracts for dredgers were already, I think, executed, most of them up to 100%. The time when I came in, the issue of I was basically part of the team which was looking at the interest, especially for this particular contract. So the calculation for the interest was actually done, I think, by our colleagues from Finance Department. However, if you follow through, what transpired was the supplier had issued two claims. The first claim, of course, was on the delayed, payments of the payment certificates, and the second one was on the demurrage of, the equipment at, the border crossing points. So, in a negotiation which was done, and which was done, it was agreed that the issue of the demurrage cannot be considered because ultimately it's also covered within the same issues of interest. That was how it was dropped, and what remained was just the issue of interest, which was calculated by our Department of Finance. The issue of the supplier basically claiming for interest at the end of the contract is basically, like I indicated earlier on, is already provided for in the contract. However, what I noticed is that there were subsequent actual reminders on the the issue for payment of interest to the ministry. However, I think at the end of after final payment, that was when now the supplier had indicated to say from all those demands which were issued prior to that, he is now demanding for full interest on the delayed payments by the government. Chair, I wish to submit.
Director, you first and foremost, before Honorable Mumba comes in, you haven't answered the question as asked. First and foremost, our Director of Finance will come in and give us a calculation how they arrived at that figure. Then why didn't you invoke the clause which is in your contract, the one Auditor General has showed us, 2.7, but you are quick to calculate and agree with the contractor the interest, and again go and look for that money from Treasury, leaving your much needed other expenses or costs, but you go and push for that and pay. I think that's not acceptable. So tell us why you didn't invoke clause 27.1 to charge the contractor liquidated damages, but you accept to pay the interest. Or why did you tell him to forfeit the interest because he had also abrogated the contract by not delivering the dredgers, starting to deliver after a year? In actual sense, the contract was active and he needed to have the lead time to deliver. Like I said, what's good for the goose should be good for the gander. So tell us, Director, why is it that? Then Honorable Anton Mumba will come in. Why didn't you invoke clause 27.1?
Thank you, Chair. I wish to state that probably I think it was an issue of an oversight. Like I indicated, the contract management basically was, I came in at a time when the delivery of these dredgers was already done. So I did not I didn't, from the history that was given, I think this didn't come to my attention until now, but I regret that one, Honorable Minister, Honorable Chair.
Controlling Officer, first let me allow my Honorable Mumba to come in.
Thank you, Chairperson. It's so unfortunate that our people are being subjected to this type of torture. And I call it torture because I know your ministry owes a lot of small suppliers money. Even people have just supplied you those same bond paper for you to print those same contracts which are questionable. There are plenty queuing up. Liquidated damages, just like I said in the beginning, contracts that are given everywhere, even around the world, especially to citizens, are win-win. Now, to help or to protect taxpayers' money, which is collected through the people and given to you to give them goods and services, is supposed to be looked after properly and jealously. It cannot, sir, be taken as an oversight and it's normal. And you sleep in the evening, wake up in the morning, go for work. $300,000, $700,000 to give somebody. I can guarantee you, your ministry knew that if it calculates 1 year of unlimited damages, there will even be nothing to pay him. That I can tell you. And we can sit here and do the calculations. We have got the whole day. As here, we are representing the people. That's what we do. We don't have time for oversights and the regret. We don't have that. We don't have that luxury. We see them suffering every day. Those dredgers, how many lives have been lost in those places where they were supposed to have been cutting those roots that grow in those rivers? How many people couldn't access clean water or dams not properly be done because of that? That's what we think about here when we're seated here. So, that's what I've said, the Honorable Chairperson. The unlimited damages will be calculated and removed from this same interest, we'll see how much will remain. And if there will be money that you have paid, it will be recovered from you, the officers. That's what we'll push to the Speaker, so that we start to make you people examples. How do you call it an oversight? 1 year. 1 year. 1 year of not calculating and what's the clause again? Liquidated damages. Those liquidated damages play a mitigational role. That's what they play. I told you, you paid on expired documents. You paid that 50% payment on documents that were not complete. That's why I gave you the background. Those goods, I think, were in Finland or something, but in the Scandinavian countries. So how can somebody, those goods arrive, then they start charging you interest and you accept? So, Chairperson, I'm following your insistence. Let's calculate the unlimited damages versus the interest, which I know was conspicuously put into this contract, because there is no contract in government today that can attract interest on goods. What would happen to Ministry of Health if interest was charged on drugs? And if you look at the money they are being owed, or even those same suppliers that have given you pencils started charging interest, what would it be like? So, Honorable Chairperson, this is another area we need to take punitive action, and those unlimited damages will be calculated for 1 year versus the interest. I know the interest will be wiped out, and the excess will ensure that it's recovered from you people. You can't be going to offices and sitting there, oversight, regret. What kind of work attitude is that?
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Daka.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add on what my colleague Honorable Mumba has just alluded to, controlling officer, liquidated damage clause is not open-ended. There is a maximum, or there is a limit to liquidated damages, after which automatically the contract is supposed to terminate. If I know you are fully aware about some of these things. Now we have a situation here where your officers this is a very deliberate move. Deliberately close a clause which could have terminated the contract, and that could have eventually saved the country from losing huge sums of money. $700,000 is not a small amount of money. This is a daylight robbery. We are protecting thieves here. People are stealing, and your officers are busy promoting that kind of an attitude. Just the liquidated damage clause could have ended this thuggery that happened in your ministry, if you are not aware. So what will happen? We'll calculate the liquidated damages. If it goes beyond the limit which was prescribed by the contract, the whole monies which were paid in form of interest has to be recovered and paid back to government. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, honorable members. It's very, very regrettable, I must say, and like members have suggested, and controlling officer, we're going to pursue this matter. It's not a small issue. We are representing the Zambian people, and we ensure that we put this matter to end, and people should learn. Like I said earlier, us, we are going to pursue even recommendations of the previous committee, because we don't want business as usual in this committee. We are not just going to sit here, talk tomorrow, we'll do the recommendations, ends there. If means enforcing those recommendations with the law, the investigation agencies will do that, and also task them to ensure that those recommendations which were done are pursued and implemented, because we want to bring this issue to end. There's a lot. You're not the only ministry, the other ministries, but you've got competent people, educated people in the civil service, highly trained by the civil service, and yet doing things deliberate. I think that's not acceptable. Controlling officer, just respond to those sentiments from the honorables. I thank you.
Chair, I'm very grateful to you and the honorable members that have brought out quite a number of issues. And it still echoes even what Honorable Mfalali himself has been bringing out. I would simply say that I am guided, and we will still go and follow up using clause 27.1 to try and do the calculation for the liquidated damages and try and recover the funds from whatever happens, and we will report back to the committee.
Thank you, Controlling Officer. Let's remove the word try. We should ensure that we do that. Try means we should ensure, because this is a very serious issue alluded to by Honorable Mumba. We should ensure that we do that. Where's the Director of Finance?
Chair will ensure, will replace it with ensure.
Principal Accountant, where are you?
Chair.
Yes, Honorable.
Can I just come in before I start giving us calculation?
Okay.
Chair, we need to see, because interest calculations are provided for in the contract. We need to be guided on the clause which governs interest claims in the contract, because it's not just an open-ended, it's not just the business as usual kind of an arrangement. There's a contractual clause, first of all, which describes how the interest claims are going to be arrived at. So my proposition is why can't they make a submission, a full dossier, which indicates how they calculated interest, so that as a committee we sit down and evaluate that dossier, and then they can come back to appear before this committee much more later. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Daka. Controlling Officer, I think what we require from you is to submit the calculations, how it was arrived at, the clause in the contract, together with the contract. Then we look at it as you come to appear. We're not going to allow your principal accountant to run us through the way calculated. Let it be in form of submission, then we can critically look at it as a committee.
Stand guided, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Mumba.
Chairperson, just to add the demurrage as well. Yeah, please.
So in your calculation, as you calculate, you show us how you arrived at the interest. Let's also invoke clause 27.1 on the demurrage for a year in which the aforesaid supplier delayed. What are the liquidated damages vis-a-vis the interest which were charged? And the clause in the contract stipulating if it's compound interest, what level of interest, from with the principal amount, or from what, we need that categorically outlined in the submission. Yes, Honorable.
Yeah, Chair. Even attachment which will support the interest claims. For instance, I'm giving an example from the date of submission of the claim, clearly indicating the dates and the date of payments. We need documentation that indicates which supports the interest claims. As serious attachments, we need serious attachments. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Mfarare.
Thank you, Chair. Allow me to move to construction of embankments. Chair, again, we have come to another query on the embankments and landing jetties that were supposed to be constructed in Bangweulu, Mweru, and Chilubi Islands. My question again comes as follows. According to your, first of all, maybe let me just ask the controlling officer. Your contracts, in terms of whatever contract that you have gotten into as a ministry, who has been drafting your contracts? Maybe that would be my first question. Who is really drafting the contracts for this ministry? The second one I would want to ask is, out of your contracts, again, you have a situation here for these embankments where on 15th of January 2016, the contractor made claim of 8 million on interim payment certificate number 2. However, a review of the payment revealed that the payment of the claim was delayed for a period of 34 months at the 31st March 2019, resulting interest claim of 4,479,609. Now, these contracts, again, they seem, from your ministry, they seem to be attracting interest. Who has been drafting your contracts? Or do you have a legal officer in this ministry? Or who is really drafting the contracts in this ministry? For us to be losing or to be incurring interest on almost every contract, because the majority of the contracts that are in this audit query, they seem to have been favoring the contractor and not the people's money. May I find out, Chair?
Thank you, Honorable Mfarari, for that question. Controlling officer, I think history seems to be repeating itself in your ministry, I think, and I think it's an indication to this committee that people don't take things seriously. If we are paying interest from the other contract, we again engage ourselves in another contract. We also leave it to such an extent that again we are charged interest. We go and again contract another contract. Then again where's the management? Where's the management? Where's the senior management to follow on these contracts and to ensure that we are within the stipulated clauses in the contract, to ensure that government doesn't lose money? But it seems the order of the day in your ministry is interest. Like I said, interest. I don't understand.
Read for you some of the terms of contract included in this contract for the embankment. 1, if the client made a late payment, the contractor should be paid interest on the late payment in the next payment. That is in the next payment. You come up with a clause like this one. If the client made a late payment, the contractor should be paid interest on the late payment in the next payment. The client or the contractor may terminate the contract if the other party causes a fundamental breach of the contract. As of 30th June 20, the contractor had been paid amount totaling to 12 million. So a clause, I'm much interested in the first clause. Even when you know that, I think as a government, you are limping, you are not really doing so good, you put clauses like these. Say, delayed payment should attract. So this one was on interim on IPC number 2, and they paid money for it.
Yes, Honorable Member.
Just to add on Honorable Mfarai's sentiment. Chair, I asked this question over interest, that interest claims have to be claimed within a stipulated time frame. I've never seen in my entire career where interest claims are calculated at the end of the contract. They are a carryover. But in this ministry, where we have seen, it's very apparent there are cartels in this ministry. There's a cartel of stealing in this ministry, where things can be done at any particular point of time, regardless, they disregard contractual requirements and go ahead. Whatever suits them to steal, that's what they are going to evoke. Chair, the contract is very clear. You claim interest in the subsequent IPC or invoice, failure to which that interest is invalid. It cannot apply. It's very clear. But officers under this ministry, they opt to ignore such neglect because they are taking part in the theft. Chair, I submit.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Controlling Officer, what are your answers to those questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. When you look at the one for the embankment, truly, Chair, it's also, I think, a failure to be able to protect the people's funds. What would have to do is take the guidance that you've given us over the previous contract we were discussing and come back to the committee with a detailed report, but also ensure that the clauses to be able to protect the people are actually invoked, and where it shouldn't be paid, payment should not be done.
Thank you, Controlling Officer. And you haven't paid the 3.7, which you've agreed with the contractor as your final settlement, isn't it?
Not
This is part of the interest.
Yes.
Okay. Since you haven't paid on that, I think these things should not escalate. Give us a detailed report, and we don't want these things escalating and pushing Treasury. I think you shouldn't even push Treasury to pay this amount, because it's like it's a roller coaster. You go to this, you pay, you push Treasury to pay money. I think this is not correct. Anything from Auditor General?
No, Chair, for now, except just to mention the issue of the non-provision of information. I think it should be taken serious by the controlling officer, because what it does is, if they give us information to come here and say now the information is available, it means we've not reviewed and will not tell the park what would have found out in that information. So it's another thing that we've seen in ministries. They will delay to give us the information. Just about when we're about to come to Parliament, then they say the information is available. Then it doesn't give us the opportunity to review and report on those contracts. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, Auditor General. Controlling Officer.
Honorable Chair and Committee, when I just took over to act, I saw the anomaly, and that's how we immediately worked on requesting for the documentation to give them to Auditor General's office. And we take the guidance very seriously that documents should be provided during the time of audit.
Yes, Honorable Mfare.
And we are behind time. I want to make a follow-up on page 9 of the Auditor General's report, or the submission, the memorandum. Construction of Kasama Bay, and my observation comes to paragraph Kasama Aerodrome. My observation is coming on paragraph 2. Okay, let me just even start. In paragraph 42 of the report of the Auditor General on the accounts of the Republic for the financial year ended 31st December 2016, mention was made of the delayed completion of the project, among others. In their report for the second session of the 12th National Assembly, the Public Accounts Committee expressed concern that the Ministry kept signing contracts without securing necessary resources, and directed the Controlling Officer to follow up the release of funds for the Kasama Aerodrome project with the Treasury. Further, the committee urged the Controlling Officer to suspend the procurement of new projects until the existing ones were completed. Now, Controlling Officer, I guess you have heard that statement which was given by this same committee sitting in the 12th session of the way you are procuring contracts. I lead you further now to Kasama Bay runway, where you had another waste for expenditure. The contract with the Ngandu, is it Ngandu Consulting, where you paid huge sums of money. Now, my question on this one is, how far have you gone with these payments? You stopped the contract, which was 63.4 billion, rebased, which is 63.4 million now. And you ended up paying this contractor, after agreeing, 157,404,000. And as it stands, you are owing, or you are indebted to this consultant, about 102,239,000. How do you think you will liquidate all this debt that seems to have been coming out of negligence, out of contracting without much discipline, and out of carelessness with cartels, the indications of cartels going on in this ministry? So how do you intend to liquidate this amount of 102 million? This payment is being made, Chair, to something, because the contract for Cassava Bay Runway, I think, was terminated, but they are now paying wasteful expenditure.
Honorable Daka.
Thank you, Chair. On Cassava Bay, controlling officer, in your submission, you indicated that the initial contract sum was 63 million kwacha. Then it escalated to 152 million kwacha. Chair, no, we need a bit of detailed information on this contract. There's so much which happened on this contract, such that the submission from the controlling officer cannot suffice from the inception what was involved on this contract before we can preside over this matter, Chair. It looks to be a very complicated kind of an arrangement, whether I don't know what type of contracting it was, what type of conditions applied to this contract, whether it was only interest that escalated this sum from 63 to 152, whether it was standing times. We need to know. In just a submission as plain as it is, I don't think it's enough for us to apprehend or to check and question whatever anomalies were happening behind this contract. So, Chair, through you, I'm requesting a detailed submission to be made to this committee. I know it's not the first time this is coming before PAC. Chair, through you, I think that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Honorable Daka. Honorable Mumba.
Thank you, Chairperson. I agree with my colleague that this contract has been coming back and forth, and in fact there is a newer contract to this of 475 million. Your ministry is not aware? Okay, please, as you go and prepare your detailed report on this Cassava Bay project, please investigate. I am aware that this contract, first of all, was taken into arbitration, and as a result, you're paying the contractor this amount. But again, I don't know, whatever it is happened, this contract was awarded again to the same contractor for a value of 470 million. But since the chairperson were asking from him to allow us to get you to give us more details, I'll wait for that appropriate time, as I will equally go and get more information, so that I'm not seen to be misleading the chairperson and, of course, our people out there. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mumba. Very valid. Honorable Mfarari.
I think, Chair, through you, in the preparation of their answers, we would want to know what were the challenges on this project that led to the termination, and what was the percentage of completion, or what was completed so far on this project. We would want to know. Maybe if you have answers for this one, you'd go ahead and tell us the termination was for the following reasons, and how much did the Ngandu Consulting, how much work did they do in Cassava Bay for the runway? The other one, can you briefly explain how the ministry can enter into a consent judgment and agree to make the government pay 152 million of a project that was 63 million rebased? What was the rationale? Chair, through you, I guess the controlling officer realizes that the project was 63 million kwacha. They go into a judgment, in consent judgment, then they end up paying 152 million. What was the rationale? What was really going on here at the Ministry of Tourism? You terminate a contract for 63 million. The reasons are not given to us yet. Maybe Honorable Mumba could know because he was sitting in this committee earlier on, if this matter would come. But maybe, to refresh his mind, he would have told us what really was going on. Why did you have to terminate this contract? And what was the rationale behind you terminating a contract for 63 million and only to repay or to pay this contractor a sum of 152 million? What was the rationale, controlling officer? We may say there was someone else who should blame in this whole project, but you are sitting as directors of finance, you are sitting as director of planning and monitoring. What were you monitoring in this ministry? If huge sums of money can be lost from 63 million to 152, and you give him free money of 152 million, you part away, you have parted away, I think following you have parted away already with 53 million, the balance there is, you paid, how much did they pay these people? 52. 52 million was paid, and now you have a balance. So what was really going on here? We would want to know, because controlling officer, we are not here really to push you to the wall, but we want answers. Sir, we hate no one. We love you, but you just have to do the needful on behalf of the Zambian people. We want to know what criteria, what's the rationale behind you paying huge sums of money by terminating a contract. The other one on this same contract, I want you to tell this committee, in view of what I have indicated to you, don't you think heads must roll? Whoever was involved in this contract, don't you think it's time people must be punished for doing the wrong things? It doesn't matter whether the person who did this has left office. We will follow them, and we must follow them. It doesn't matter whether all these transactions were happening at Ministry of Justice or somewhere else at Cabinet. We want to know who was really involved in this. For them to part away with huge sums of money, terminating a contract of 63 million, whatever the reasons behind, and then you come back, you pay him 153 million. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Controlling Officer, before I come in, just react to those 3 questions from the Honourables. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. We take the guidance over the requirement for the detailed report, and we will include the other issues that Honourable Mfarari has asked, including the officers that were involved. At least I remember last time we checked, the matter was in court, but we'll also be able to update the committee on what has happened to that. But I wanted to clarify something which Honourable Mfarari brought over the matter on page 9, where the committee had concerns of projects still being contracted. around between 2013 and about 2015, the ministry had contracted quite a lot of contracts. So at the time I was getting to the ministry, we still had outstanding IPCs on Solwezi Airport, Mansa Airport, Chipata, Kasaba Bay, which is the thing that is here. So this directive from the committee to some extent was looked into, and over the years we've pushed to close off the issues. Mansa IPCs were fully paid, the ones for Chipata were paid, and the ones for Solwezi. While Solwezi, we see the contractor is still having a challenge getting back on site, but there are no outstanding IPCs, unless the Director of Transport is telling me there's something at the moment. But that was the basis on which the directive of don't go and contract anymore was. But over the issue of getting back with a detailed report over Kasaba Bay, we will come back to the committee, Chair.
Thank you, PS. This contract, I think, was put on hold. I think there was issues with SCC. Have you verified if everything has been dropped? Because I think when it was on hold, just kindly tell the committee it was on hold. Then was it cleared for you to start making payment? Because interests were charged. Did the contractor go on site? What is the level of works he did? What percentage are you aware as a ministry? That I also want to know who's the contract manager for this one particularly, who's it falling under, to explain if they had gone on site to see that this gentleman had mobilized, they had done so much work, even when they were now suing you for interest. Because if he didn't do any work, why should he sue you? Because you can set aside the contract and look at other, I mean, you can even consult with AG, because unless if he did the work. So what really happened? Because there's an issue of SCC. Just I think highlight on that, controlling officer.
Chair, my understanding is that some works were done. In the report that we'll be doing to you, we'll also try and do some verification with the Ministry of Infrastructure with the percentage of works done from what the original contract was. In my understanding, the time I was studying the case, I think Ngandu themselves were actually the supervising engineers. Then when the team that was supposed to execute the contract couldn't do it, he asked the ministry, then it was the joint bigger ministry, that he could take up the job of being a contractor. And at that moment, I feel they should have had someone else to supervise. But we'll give you the information in the detailed report.
Yes, Honorable Farah.
According to the submission by the controlling officer, so are you telling us that Ngandu Consulting was a consultant, while at the site they turned themselves into contractors, and that's what happened? There was no need now to float this tender for other people to tender. Ngandu Consulting himself wants to supervise himself at the same time as a consultant and be a contractor on the site. Is that what you're telling us for that time?
Controlling officer, you can proceed to answer the question.
Chair, in looking at what Honorable Mfarari is asking for, in the report we'll be providing to you, we'll check the full facts so that we don't land up misleading the committee and being cited under Cap 12 that we gave information that wasn't fully verified. But we will ensure that all these details are put in the detailed report.
Thank you, Controlling Officer. Honorable members, any questions? Honorable Daka?
Thank you very much. As a follow-up on Kasama Aerodrome, the issue of not getting authority from Attorney General for approval also came out on the Kasama Aerodrome. Controlling officer of PS. I don't know whether it was a trend or it was something that was being done deliberately. I don't know. Can you tell this committee, we need to know what was behind all these much obviously things that you knew that they were supposed to be done and deliberately avoided them. Tell this committee, we need to know what was behind this kind of behavior. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. PS.
Chair, again, it's a bit difficult for me to be able to say why it wasn't done at that time. That's how when I looked at the matter, what I was trying to do was now, how do we clean up this mess and ensure that the Zambian people don't land up losing the resources, while we realize an issue that Honorable Mumba brought out, that yes, it denies the Zambian people access to this facility and the utilization of this facility, but we still need to ensure where there are lapses that we address those.
Thank you, PS. Honorable Mparari.
Chair, allow me maybe to move quickly to the ZICTA queries.
Proceed.
Okay, now, Chair, let me start while I'm still looking at the question that I wanted to ask. Let me start by asking the controlling officer. You got $700,000 to pay for a building where you are now housing the Ministry of Transport and Logistics. In the other side, the other side of your report or the queries that you have, you are paying interest on someone who